Welcome everyone. Today we have the Battle of the Queers. Today we have a special queer.
Welcome back to the Brain Rot. You all knew this was coming. This movie's basically become my entire personality. So let's talk about another facet of this movie that drives me insane, the queer coding. Even though it was probably unintentional. Now, queer coding itself can be a lot of different things and mainly depends on the viewer's perspective of a character. You guys can disagree with me 100%, I'm just yapping. But come on! A movie about someone who fundamentally changes their identity, adopts a new name, and is hated by the government? I know what you are. There's a few instances of it here in this film, so I'd like to go over them individually. Some are more small and subtle, while others are throughout the entire film. So, let's dive into another one of my inane ramblings as I create an escape from reality. Before we start, I like to say that this does not apply to everybody. I'm mainly using personal and secondhand experiences to go off, as well as common occurrences I've seen retold through social and general media. This doesn't apply to everybody, and that's okay. This is more of a general analysis, so if this doesn't pertain to your experience, then that's alright. If you notice something that connected with you that I might have missed, leave a comment. Okay, now to the brain rot. You knew this was up first. Astro's entire character surrounds identity, especially pertaining to individuality and separating from a past self, which you could argue is very transcoded. I myself am not trans, but I do know someone who is, so let's go ask him. Oh my god, no! You barely pushed the button and it's already going to shit. Okay.
There.
Hello!
Hi.
Welcome back to real world. It's me. This is my friend.
Hi.
What are you?
Crow.
No, what are you?
Trans.
Everyone start clapping. We love you. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to say anything about the experience before I start berating you with questions?
It's alright.
Okay. When you first came out to your family, what were their initial reactions?
Horrible.
Yeah.
I came out at 13 and 17 currently. My dad never accepted me. My stepmom never accepted me. My mom kicked me out, but she kicked me out at 14, but I came back at 16. She got full custody. And then my dad kicked me out at 16, and I moved back in with my mom, and she suddenly was accepting because, I don't know, I guess she wanted this redemption thing of, oh, I miss you, and I love you guys, you are. And then I started testosterone at 16, almost 17, and I've been on testosterone for 11 months.
I'm still surprised at how many times you've been kicked out.
I have, yeah.
No, that's like nuts, though. It's actually awful.
Yeah.
And here I am using your trauma for my hyperfixation video essay. I'm so sorry.
People say be patient with the older people or whatever, but I say don't. I say step on them. I don't care.
Step on them?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Like, it's crazy that I'm in my car right now.
I know what joke I'm putting that in the video for. I know what I put it on the screen. With more specific questions, like, I'm trying to think of how to put it without sounding like a stupid moron. Cause like,
Yes.
I'm away, so I can't really say anything. Like, when I came out to my parents, it was like a, oh, you're fine,
Yeah.
sort of thing. But
My parents didn't really care about the fact I'm bisexual because being trans kind of overshadowed that.
with my fixation thing, when I'm basically making the argument that he is a trans allegory, which,
Astro Boy?
yeah.
Oh.
I'm sorry, okay, it was a 2009 movie that she was written under the Bush administration.
Yeah.
I don't know, alright, that was like before all of our shit was legalized.
Wasn't 2009 when Obama became president?
I'll have to Google that, actually.
Okay.
I'm very stupid. But I think with some of the points in my essay I had made were like how when parents don't see themselves reflected in their children, they like feel negatively about that. Like, why can't you be how I perceive you? Or how I used to perceive you, like this little kid. Like, you've changed, you're not my kid anymore. What have they done to you? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
When my grandma found out I was trans because of my little brother, Thank you, little brother. She sat me down and told me, the Democrats are turning our children transgender. But I wasn't even her child, so she should have said grandchildren transgender, but
They're not.
Her kids are not. No.
She's saying something about one of your parents, perhaps?
Oh yeah, definitely my dad. Yeah.
Do you feel that your government is persecuting you and other people who are trans because of currently ongoing political events that fucking suck?
Yes. Funny enough, even though we live in California, I had trouble picking up my testosterone last month, which is the first month since Trump has became president. They kept on delaying me getting my testosterone. They originally said that the prescription has suddenly disappeared. And I was like, no I didn't.
That's weird.
I've had it for 11 months now. So I called my doctor and I was like, is it gone? And they were like, no. And so I called back and CVS was like, oh wait, it is there. And I was like, oh boy.
I was about to say, I'm glad you're not using Walmart. I heard they're getting privatized.
No, I use CVS.
Okay, good. Another question. This is more pertaining to identity itself, but do you feel like a sense of separation between you post-transition and pre-transition, almost if they're like separate people?
Yes. That's because I'm just weird. I don't know. It was me, yeah, but it was this really sad version of me. I almost felt lifeless the entire time. I kept to myself. I really had any friends. During lunch, I would sit in a corner and read a book all day, like during recess when I was younger. And it felt like nobody believed me. I was never feminine enough, so they forced me into like Girl Scouts, which did not help anything.
Oh, Girl Scouts suck. There's s'mores. There's s'mores cookies.
Gone.
What?
I think they're gone.
No!
Yeah.
They really discontinued them?
I think they are. They changed them to like this gingerbread. I don't know.
Genderbread?
Wait, no, French toast. French toast. That's what it is.
Genderbread? I'll take a loaf of that. I firmly believe that Girl Scouts is run by that one bitch from Despicable Me. 18 coconutties.
Yeah.
Is found family a part of the trans experience, do you believe? Or part of the queer experience in general? Found family is in like people away from blood family that support you and uplift you.
Yes. All of my family don't support me besides my mom and my little brother. That's it.
Go to family
Two.
members. Everyone say thank you to them.
Two. Yeah, found family is definitely important. My boyfriend Noah, we've been together 2.5 years.
Oh. When you would meet people for the first time, would you hide the fact that you were trans, or would you tell them?
Oh, I'd hide it. I still hide it, especially now that I passed and stuff. I usually tell them when I get to know them very well, but it's not like I tell them. It's more of as like it's kind of like a story that's like connected to something that they're saying. Like, let's say I'm at work and a Girl Scout troop comes in because we work at a pizza place, and I'm like, oh man, I fucking hate Girl Scouts. And then they're like, why do you hate Girl Scouts? And I'm like, well, long story, but I was one. Yeah. And then they're like, oh my god, I can't tell. I'm like, yeah, I know you can't tell. And they're like, wow, you have periods?
Last question, I promise. I had this like on the dot, like, oh, that's one I should mention as well. Do you think that coming out to people when you first started realizing it is a matter of self-acceptance too? As if when you come out to someone, you yourself need to accept it first? Or has it always kind of been there?
So the problem is I never really did come out to people. I told my mom and my dad, and it kind of spread. So I didn't really ever tell people, especially since I came out during COVID.
Oh.
And I was in middle school. I was in 8th grade, and I was going into freshman year. So I cut all my hair off, dressed more masculine. No one recognized me.
No, yeah, I remember first day I saw you in health class freshman year, I thought you were a dude wearing a skirt. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I wore a skirt
Okay.
because I was able to. I don't know, it was weird. I passed because I had like short hair.
Yeah.
Because it was 9th grade. I mean, there's a lot of prepubescent kids. But yeah, I just didn't come out. People were like, I don't know. So my family, it just spread in my family. I just told my mom and my dad, and I have made whole new friends. I didn't keep any of my old friends, especially because they were fake as fuck.
So you're saying you got outed by your parental figures?
Yes, to all of my family. I didn't tell any of them.
Put the image of the man on the screen. The grease man. The guy who was too good for the movie. I have got to get the director of this guy on an interview when, like, the movie turns 20, dude. I need to ask him what the fuck he was thinking making any of this. Well, that's all the questions I had. Thank you for coming on. Anything else to say?
Nope.
Okay.
Gotta pee.
Oh, really quick. You think I needed all the guards at the hex gates?
Now that you know that I have sources and I'm not bullshitting this entire video, let's analyze. Starting off, we need to acknowledge Tobio, his former self. He's a bit more sassy, to put it bluntly, finishing his test quickly, announcing it to the class, sneaking into the ministry, etc, etc. You cannot tell me you see Astro doing these things. This is mainly to highlight how they're very different in hindsight, but here's the kicker. To Astro, the line between them is unclear. Only for like a day though.
Get the fuck out!
While Tenma can only see the differences and everything wrong with him, Astro's over here thinking this is the most natural thing ever. For him, nothing substantial has changed. This is just who he is. But to Tenma, everything has changed. With parents, they tend to have an image of their child in their head, hence why my mom will ask me, where did my daughter go? Who's this girl? When I give her attitude. Astro literally hasn't noticed anything out of the ordinary and is just being himself. Even if it's different from Tobio, he's still himself. But Tenma can't accept that and calls him strange, reiterating that Toby's gone and distances himself from Astro. Meanwhile, we get an important scene of self-discovery. Speaking from personal experience here, you usually don't notice that you're LGBTQ+ until a bit later in life. Looking back at all the signs, or you've always just kind of had an inkling. It's different for everyone, but I can personally say I didn't realize until I was late into middle school. You really don't notice the signs because you're just being yourself. You don't have an image of yourself because you're still growing and changing. It's easy to look back and notice all the hints, but in that moment you don't. You're just being you. Other people sometimes notice before you do, which Tenma here has. That's what the whole morning lessons shtick is. He's trying to revert him back to Toby somehow. But Astro's personality is just himself. Tenma reverberates how Toby would act, his favorite subject being four-dimensional calculus, his favorite childhood books, and so on. He physically cannot let go of Toby. When Tenma realizes that he's really gone, he abstains from Astro and sends him to his room. Fucking yikes. Also, reiterating my point, when Astro's in his room, he asks, quote, what's different? Nothing has changed for him. He still thinks he's Toby and is acting as himself, even if it's different from Toby. I'm actually going to cry. Now here comes the event of self-discovery. Astro realizes he can understand the robots outside of his window, which has absolutely nothing about self-discovery that I'm talking about. I'm mainly talking about the flying scene here, okay? At first, he stumbles around while causing thousands in property damage, but gets the hang of it. This particular scene is my favorite in the entire film because it's not only his last moments before he's discarded, but because in this moment he is solidified in his identity, thinking he's still Toby, and he is so happy. He thinks he's discovered a new facet to himself and is embracing it fully. And what's his first thought after getting the hang of flying? I gotta show Dad. He's going back home, fully expecting to be praised and appreciated for what he can do now, but will only be met with cruelty and the shattering of his world.
Oh my fucking god, I can't do this anymore. I can't fucking do it. Turn the microphone off, I can't.
The I don't want you scene has been playing on repeat in my head for years at this point, and I've only gotten sadder about it as time passes. When he gets back to the house, he's immediately greeted with his dad saying he doesn't want to see his face again behind his back. He obviously interjects and asks what's going on, and despite Elephant's attempts to help the situation, Tenma does the worst thing possible! I wanted to analyze what he says here for a long time, but under this queer lens, it's actually really fucking sad. First he says he's not his son, twice mind you. You could connect this to how when sometimes people come out to their parents, they're immediately renounced with things like, this isn't my child, you've changed, what have they done to you? Or simply rejecting the reality that the present could possibly come from the past version of the child they have in their head. Simply denying it or thinking it to be a phase or outright rejecting that their child at all. Next, he specifically calls him a robot. This particularly struck interesting to me. When Astro initially approaches Tenma, he immediately tells him about his abilities, but he doesn't question why they're there exactly. He still thinks he's Toby and has accepted those abilities as a part of himself, not as a separation from Toby by any means, but a progression. Tenma's the one to label him as a robot and not his son. Astro tried introducing these new facets of himself as something that came naturally to him, but Tenma immediately labels him as something other than his son and says he doesn't want him anymore. It's worse than the novelization, where based on his punctuation, he is yelling at Astro rather than talking. He calls him a failed experiment. This aspect really stands out to me because Tenma's the one to point out the fact that he's a robot, almost as if it's something less than the human. Or rather, simply other. This is immediately adopted by Astro because he tells Elephant he isn't Toby when he flies away after being kicked out for less than a day. Wait. Fucking hate this. This is immediately adapted into Astro's thought process because he tells Elephant he isn't Toby when he flies away after being kicked out at less than a day old. I can say with heavy certainty that being kicked out for simply existing as yourself is something that happens to queer people. I've only experienced it secondhand with a close friend of mine having all of their stuff in trash bags on the curb and being kicked out by their parents. They had to move in with a relative and stopped going to my school, so we only see each other sparingly. What always baffles me about these kinds of instances is how the parent always blames their kid, saying something's wrong and never considering that this is simply who they are. With my friend, I can say with solidarity that I could never have seen them with their gender assigned at birth, and I never will. It always boggles my mind just how far people are willing to go to reject any kind of ideal they don't understand. These kinds of things develop as your personality develops, the same way you develop an interest in a school subject or a passion in the arts. It's a facet of your identity. Trying to reject that just because you don't understand it is awful to me.
Anyway, back to the movie.
Here we have a segment I like to call, "This fictional dystopia is getting uncomfortably similar to my reality, and I don't like it." President Stone sees the blue core in Astro and immediately guns them down to try and get it. Now, if you want my full President Stone analysis, then go watch that, because I don't feel like talking about him any longer than I already have. Which is like 20 minutes. Anyway, Stone chases him through the city, and mind you, Astro doesn't even know why. He repeatedly asks what they want / what's with these guys. And after a while, Stone gets more violent with the chase, trying to destroy him instead of capture him. I'd also like to point out that when General Heckler asks if that's quote Tenma's boy, Stone says, "Of course not," and then calls him an it. I'll go into a pronoun analysis in a few minutes, so keep that in the back of your head. I need to off myself. I'm doing a pronoun analysis of Astro Boy 2009. I'm doing great. Stone brings out the biggest ship he has with the biggest guns to shoot him down, which mind you, he hasn't even fought back. He's just avoided their maneuvers and even saved one of the soldiers. He did bend the guns on the Stinger ships, but I don't think that qualifies blasting him off the city with missiles. Whatever, Stone's a dick. I'd also really like to hammer in the fact that this president hates him not only because he has the blue core, which he still doesn't favor yet wants, but also dehumanizes him multiple times because he's a robot, and arrests him for simply existing. Now, I could be reading into this a little too much, but then again, reading into things is my entire personality. But Stone wanting the blue core for the Peacekeeper could be read as politicians abusing minorities, like queer people, for a political agenda. He goes out of his way to hunt him, and specifically him down, for quote-unquote national security. You could narrow down what he says about security to only the blue core, given what the red one did to Toby and Elephant told him they were both destroyed, but the blue one clearly isn't doing any harm. It's cherry-picking one facet of something unthreatening and making it a threat. Fear-mongering again, Stone! So after all that chasing, he gets gunned down and wakes up in a pile of amalgamated corpses of his own kind. I will never shut up about how horrifying this is. Now, here's what I like to call a queer canon event, found family. This is usually when people rejected by their family and loved ones find solidarity and acceptance in a group of supporting people. We have 2 of these in the film. He has a found family monopoly. The orphans and the RRF specifically, though they both divide different kinds of acceptance. The RRF provides acceptance for being a robot, while the orphans provide acceptance for being himself, identity and all. Now, focusing on the RRF for a moment, they straight up kidnap him for some ungodly reason. They do tell him he's safe and not to worry. I don't think it really works though. Basically, the only thing they do is give him a new name and welcome him as a robot brother. I really think he needed some robot solidarity because without the RF, he's basically the only robot around. Without them, he'd basically be alone with nobody in on his secret, which fucking ouch. The orphans, on the other hand, he does not tell. Considering how he's seen robots treated prior, that is absolutely understandable. From what I've collected about queer experiences, trans specifically, is about how they would initially hide the fact that they were trans people as to not be subjected to judgment or because they didn't want anyone to know. This is entirely an individual thing and changes from person to person, but it's a shared experience from my research. So they welcome him into their home and he gains another father figure for about, less than 48 hours. The orphanage is actually one of my favorite parts of the film, despite the second act being, well, the second act. I just really like how everyone is immediately welcoming despite Astro being from Metro City and let him into their life. Like, that's just so great. They're so accepting for about 5 minutes. In any case, the orphans are his source of acceptance, even if for a short time. Also, in Cora's call scene, I like to draw attention to the fact that Astro actually tries to tell her that he is a robot, but he backs down and is clearly upset that he did. Now, let's read into this way too deep because I have way too many brainworms. First and foremost, I think he's not just upset that he didn't tell her, but he's upset that he's still lying about being a human, given that's the first thing he's ever said to them, a lie. Though it was understandable lie at the start, it evolves into a lie that's been told for no apparent reason. The orphanage seems like a welcoming environment. Look at how they treat robots here. Hameg says he loves them and loves fixing them. They all love and dote on Trash Can. They even make sure his dog is in good shape and they seem to enjoy his presence. Logically, he should tell them. They wouldn't mind, right? He's a liar and he owes this to them, right? He can keep lying because they'll all find out eventually and it's too late. They could hate him, right? But he doesn't tell her. He doesn't tell anybody, and he's managed to avoid Trash Can trying to out him God knows how many times. Drawing from personal experience here, I think it's a matter of self-acceptance in this instance. It's easy to know what you are, but it's even harder to accept it. Personally, I am asexual, meaning I don't feel attraction like that. It's a bit isolating from the rest of the LGBTQ+ community, and I've had a lot of personal issues with that. I thought people would see me as an emotionless person or not feeling attraction like that. I would go over scenarios in my head where future partners left me just because of that. Just knowing that you're outside of the status quo is enough to try and keep that part of yourself locked away. With Astro here, the only prior experience he has of someone knowing he was a robot was with Tenma, the one who told him he wasn't his son and that he didn't want him anymore. Of course he'd be afraid to tell anyone else. The last time someone knew, they abandoned him. He can't let something like that happen again, so he abstains from telling her. Which comes back as a mistake later, so well, shit. Now we need to talk about the second father figure in the room, Hameg. Astro has had 2 homophobic fathers within the span of a single week. Hameg starts off as someone accepting and even relates to his situation. They've both been discarded by the same man and ended up in the same place, though their backgrounds are slightly different. Which is another point to the acceptance chart. Now, this is an observation I developed after my initial giant essay, but I think Hameg only liked Astro because he sees himself in him. Hear me out! This pertains to queer coding, I promise. Similar background, similar ingenuity with machines, etc. This kind of plays into my whole parents not understanding the picture of their kids tangent I was on about earlier, but slightly different. I've done some personal observations and research online, though there isn't a lot of information out on this subject. Basically, their article talks about how parents see themselves in their children, and their behavior reflects how they see themselves in their children. Specifically this quote, "For parents with positive self-feelings, anger, hurt, and disappointment can occur when they don't see themselves reflected in their children." Is this not what Hameg is doing? He sees himself in Astro and immediately gets all attached, suggesting he even adopt him, and the second he finds out they're slightly different, he outs him in front of all of his friends. Hammock is just way too good of a character for this movie. Like, he wanted someone to know the same kind of pain and depravity he's known for years since he was cast out of the ministry, only to be revealed the one semblance of similarity he's seen is something different than him. He immediately treats him as something less. Something other than human can't possibly knows how he feels, right? He's the only one to experience that kind of pain. And to think a robot could, the kind of robots that kill each other in the arena constantly, the same machines he takes apart and puts back together knowing all of their inner mechanisms inside and out. How could one of them possibly understand his pain? They can't. They can't even fathom anything. He'll show them. He'll show them all. He'll show them all he's better than someone trying to mock him and his suffering that he, and he alone, truly knows. I think I need to make a Hammock video. Back on track, I think this pertains to queer coding because with that context, the parent could not understand what their kid is trying to convey about themselves and see it as something out of line with what they expect of them, this instance being like the parent. Hammock only sees parts of himself in Astro and that confuses him. The differences are too great for him to see the basis of similarities, and to him, that invalidates everything. So to prove that he's the only one who's ever experienced what he has and invalidate Astro, he outs him in front of all his friends against his will, and then he dehumanizes him for public entertainment. Now for this next bit, I need you to bear with me for a moment while I ask you a question. Have any of you ever played Project Sekai Colorful Stage featuring Hatsune Miku? The game where this picture came from, the meme a few months ago? What if I told you this picture is related to the video's theme? You probably already know that if you play Project Sekai, but whatever. This is Mitsuki Akiyama, and she is trans. You cannot fucking fight me on that. Go do some basic research. However, this image was a really big meme a while back, and is relevant to this video, I promise. Specifically, this image is a story picture from an event the fandom calls Mizu 5, short for Mizuki's 5th character event. I'll be doing some brief background context and summary. I highly recommend you seek out some other Mizuki videos because they're genuinely amazing. To summarize, Mizuki's character has always had a secret from her group Night Court at 25, or N25 for short. After some events with Mafuyu coming into her true self, Mizuki thinks it would be hypocritical to encourage her into doing that without doing the same. So this leads into Mizuki's 5th character story where, for some reason, she tells Enna, another character at Night Court 25, to meet her on the school roof. We're unsure of why this is. The story cultivates into Enna meeting Mizuki on the rooftop, but is intercepted by a group of Mizuki's classmates, who harassingly ask if Enna is a boy too. Mizuki overhears this and pulls the meme face, and Enna has a matching one. Don't worry about them, they reconcile in another event and they get matching wedding cards. But tell me that's not what happens here? He keeps his secret for so long and is unwillingly outed by a third party, and his friends' reaction are still shocked, but they still accept him? On this particular topic, being outed is almost too common an experience for queer people, myself included, although mine was really dumb. To summarize my experience, a group of kids in a different science period than me would write homophobic slurs on my desk, not knowing I sat there. It happened quite often, so I eventually left them a rather strongly worded note that basically summed up to, "I'm gay, stop being so fucking rude." The teacher found it first and showed it to my parents. I was 14, of course I was stupid enough to leave physical evidence. In retrospect, it was a rather funny way of doing something I never would have done on my own, given that most of my family has accepted me and it's just another side factor of my identity. But in that moment, my entire world fell apart. I thought everything I knew was going to change and people would treat me differently. I would be regarded as wrong or told it was just a phase or maybe even kicked out. What I'm getting at is being outed is possibly one of the scariest things that could happen to a queer person, especially to someone who might ridicule you for what you are. So there's that. As he's thrown into the arena and forced to decimate his own kind, Cora's still bitchy about not being let in on his secret. Okay, but like, you knew each other for at least a few days. You're not entitled to that. It's Astro's decision. Also, you're basically proving him right because he was afraid of you reacting negatively, and here you are, reacting negatively. Skipping a few plot beats, we end up back at the Ministry of Science for a segment I like to call Janet looks into pronouns way too much. Throughout the movie, Astro is called a multitude of various things, but I'm looking into the subtle differences with pronouns. I know it sounds stupid. Please hear me out, okay? In the first ever scene with Astro, Ten repeatedly calls him an it. Not a he or a they, but an it. An object. Roll the tape.
It looks just like him. You don't think it is, Toby? It has the most... It's gonna make it perfect. I'm going to take it... him.
It's only after he's activated that Tenma corrects himself and calls him a he. President Stone also calls him an it repeatedly during the chase. He also calls him a thing. Like, seriously, man? Later down the line when he's outed by Hamig, he still calls him a he. Hamig may be an ass, but at least he's not going to violate his pronouns. Back to the current event, I'd also like to point out the amount of dead naming. It's fucking bonkers. Tenma and Elephant repeatedly call him Toby like 4 times? I think it's 4 times. I'll have to go back and count again. Also, Tenma reverts back to calling him an it when he's about to kill him. Father of the Year! I also wanted to analyze a little tidbit here specifically about what I think drove Tenma to accept him. Stone says Tenma can have all the funding he wants when he's re-elected to, quote, make as many little toys as he wants. I think in that moment, Tenma realized that none of this mattered to Stone. Nobody mattered to him. He sees all of this as a means to an end and never truly cared about killing his son. He saw his grieving attempt to bring him back as a toy. He's not a toy, he's a conscious being, a person he made with his 2 hands at the lowest point of his life, and he called him a toy. Someone with autonomy and emotion, a toy to him. He can't let Stone get away with that. He won't let him ruin Toby's memory and take away his new son. So then we get him finally being a good dad and dropping the most queer-coded line in the movie. You may not be Toby, but you're still my son. When I tell you this makes me tear up every time I see it, I mean it. He has fully accepted his son and embraced him instead of focusing on what he lost and turned his sights onto what he gained. I am so fucking normal about this. I'm a completely normal person and I think about this movie a normal amount per day. I am so fucking normal. I'm fine. I'm fine. Anyway, skipping some stuff again, we come to another Tenma scene. This is so important to me. Prior to this, Elephant calls him Toby. He simply says nobody's called him that for a while. Not that that isn't him, or his name, but that nobody's called him that. Almost like he's an imposter pretending not to be a copy of Toby. Hell, he even tells the RRF that's his name. But here, what does he say? He stands in solidarity with himself, that this is what he was created for. When Tenma tries to deter him by calling him Toby, he tells him that isn't who he is, but still calls him Dad. This may be a diluted read, but this gives me a very bittersweet impression of self-acceptance. As of now, he's embraced his individual identity, but that doesn't mean he still quite loves himself. Self-love is an issue that isn't limited to queer people, but is an issue for pretty much everybody. But putting it under a queer lens, he has accepted that he's a fundamentally different person from Toby, but is that such a good thing? He may have grown into his own over the course of the film, but what else has happened? He's been abandoned, attacked, ridiculed, humiliated, and killed for his identity. Keep in mind that not many people cared for Toby besides Tenma, but because he dared to step out of what was expected of his identity and express himself, he has been treated like shit. So in this moment, he knows he's himself. He knows his own name and why he was created. He knows if he continues to exist, everyone around him is going to suffer the consequences. The Peacekeeper wants him dead and hurting his friends just to get to him. So, he sacrifices himself. People around him may accept him now, but who's to say they'll continue to do that? Who's to say that even if Stone is defeated, that others won't come after him, that people still won't hate him for who he is? The unfortunate reality is that a lot of queer people are subject to an absurd amount of hate and discrimination, be it from complete strangers or their closest loved ones, oftentimes in very vulgar ways by extremists using religion and politics as an excuse to spread hatred. It's easy to feel as if you're wrong for existing or something repulsive as a result of all this hatred towards you, especially from people close to you who hold these beliefs against you and your identity. However, there is sanctuary in knowing that there will always be people who will accept you, be it friends, family, found or blood, or simply allies you can identify with. In the end of it all, Astro manages to save everyone he cares about and is probably the happiest he's been since he discovered his individuality. His dad welcomes him back, his friends celebrate with him, and the city seems to accept him. I wish I could say endings like this are common in our reality. Alas, they are very hard to come by. Anti-LGBTQ+ hate crimes have only gone up in recent years, alongside with ongoing political developments against trans and LGBTQ+ people in the United States. But no matter what any government official says, you have the right to exist. Even if you have to fight for it, you have the right to exist as yourself. LGBTQ+ people will always exist, no matter how hard hateful people will try to drown us out. So, just like Astro, our fight continues. I don't know for how long, but we will always persevere for our right to exist as ourselves. Whoa there, I got a little serious there. Let's not forget this is a kid's movie from 15 years ago. Part 2. Tenma and Ochana have queer coding in every universe. They're gay in every universe. I don't make the rules, especially the 2003 series, but this isn't about that series. The ranking is still happening, by the way. The script is getting egregiously long, so that's gonna take me a while. I'm very sorry. But in this movie, they gave out less of the divorced, semi-toxic yaoi the 03 series graciously handed us on a silver platter, in exchange for a more subtle type of relationship. Here they give off more widows seeing each other casually but have untapped amounts of yearning vibe to me. I'm not joking. The yearning part is more one-sided, Tenma, and is only amplified by the events of the movie, highlighting a few specific instances, being Tenma complimenting him in front of Stone, Tenma calling him immediately to vent his grief-fueled frustration, Tenma stopping him from going after Astro, putting his hand on his shoulder and asking him to stay, Tenma also asking for help to kill him as well. The list goes on. I just think it's weird that whenever Tenma is forced with an emotional dilemma, he immediately turns to Elephant. Also, I want to point out that when Astro's first activated, he spots Elephant in the room and is like, "Oh, bye, Elephant," as if him being alone in the lab with his dad is a common occurrence. I smell a fruit. They also plot against the president together almost seamlessly. They somehow knew how to get the blue core from one place to another while using some magic trick fuckery, and didn't even verbally plan it. Are they this cosmically intertwined that they just know what the other is thinking, or what? Also, the ending? They act like two proud dads to their little robot son, like, hello? Another note with the ending, both of them finally calling Astro by his preferred name genuinely makes me smile whenever I think about it, like, yes, they respect my boy's pronouns! In conclusion, this movie is queer-coded. This entire series is super queer-coded. Anyway, I wonder if President Logan will have Metro City Pride parades. Also, Cora, sweetie, you're not fooling anyone with those highlights. The closet is glass.